Hey, John, how you doing?
Oh, I'm good, man. I was just looking at some baseball cards.
Uh, what do you like to do when some scandalous news comes out about PSA and slab gates and stuff?
Well, when I'm feeling down, I like to look at my Roberto Clemente rookie card, my man. How about you?
I like to go live with my buddies, and I like to discuss hot topics and debate over the state of the hobby because obviously I care a lot about it, and so do you, and so do others. So I don't know if you're aware, but PSA is owed $1 million or over $1 million supposedly by Mark's Cards, and they're a submission group, and apparently they've gone zero dark 30, and one of the players that owes them money was well, Mark's Cards owes all that money, but one of the people that submitted through them was Ryan, who owns he owns card he's card collector too in the YouTube community. And he also probably took a lot of cards from people and he wanted to keep his reputation clean. So he basically had to fly out to California and pay twice the amount now because he gave Mark's the initial submission money and he had to now pay again with PSA in order to get those cards freed up and satisfy his clients, which is messed up on his end. But it seems like there's a lot of people. That's only $120,000 worth of cards. There's still basically $900,000 worth of cards out there that are stuck in limbo, and PSA has them as hostage.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, props to him. What a stand-up thing to do. He's got to be taking a hit on that. Not everybody would do that.
Right.
Hey,
Hey guys.
And here
now we got the better John in the house now.
Nah.
we got we got John squared here. Hey, John, how you doing?
Pretty good yourself.
I'm doing good. I just basically finished briefing John on the situation with PSA, and I know you're an avid registry to PSA, so I wanted to get you on and wonder about what you felt about this whole thing that's going down with PSA and the group submission. And are you aware of what happened there with Mark's Cards?
I have a little bit of knowledge. Yeah, I did find out it was Mark's Cards. I've never dealt with them. I haven't done any group submissions yet, but I have thought about it. But I've never done it because just haven't known the process. And
Yeah,
I don't know. It would have to be someone that I would know in the hobby and trust in the hobby. Like I think JT Triple Crown. I don't know if he may do SGC. I know there's a couple that, like say John Baseball Collector or Mike Baseball Collector uses. I would go through them. I don't know this Mark's Cards. I would venture to say, knowing that Card Collector 2 may be involved, my guess is they're probably modern or ultra modern cards, which I'm not into, wouldn't affect my PSA registry at all.
Right.
But I could see there's been a couple issues with scams. The Dallas show with a couple potential fake. I don't even know the true story of that. I've been watching videos about those fake slabs, potential fake slabs. You got that whole Pokemon thing. There's things that are coming out that I'm not surprised that something like this actually hasn't happened before. You get this boom in the hobby, especially with this ultra modern stuff being submitted for PSA. These investors, flippers wanting to send thousands of cards. That $1 million. You're not talking about just a couple cards. There are a lot of cards involved. If $1 million is due, and I wouldn't. Again, I'm not passing judgment. I don't know all the details. This is really new, but would not put it past me for someone to say, "Man, I got this $1 million. I got $1 million for this order."
And it's not even a million. It's not even $1 million in an order. Say you're Johnny Smith and you have like a $10,000 whatever Jordan rookie that's part of that submission, and now it's held in limbo because Marks hasn't paid. So now do you have to act like Ryan did and go out to California, prove that that's your card? Because PSA is not going to let a card go just like that. You know, that sucks if you submit it with Mark's cards and now you're in limbo. And let it be, it's not like some Gavin Lux base card. If it's a Jordan rookie card, like that's gonna kill you.
Hey, whatever card I submit, I don't care what it is. It could, I'd want that card back. But here's the question: so, did Ryan have to fly down? And so, I'm assuming Ryan already paid maybe $100,000 to get these cards. Now he has to pay PSA again. So, in other words, is he double paying for his cards?
Yeah, he had to pay twice.
Yeah. So, if I had like a 2 or 3 card or 10 card submission, I'd be, pretty pissed that I may have to pay another couple $2,000 or something like that to get my cards back. From PSA's side, okay, even if I prove, hey, here are my cards. I mean, okay. So PSA is like, okay, they're your cards, but that's great. You still owe this money. So without paying PSA, the cards are still in limbo because PSA already provided the service. They slabbed the cards. They're not going to break them out of the slabs and give them the raw cards back and say, well, sorry for your inconvenience. They already graded them.
Right. They want their money. And they're going to hold your cards hostage.
Barring going after Mark's cards to get, suing them to get the money back after you have to pay PSA essentially for a second time. But I don't know how these guys are going to get their money back because they want their cards.
And apparently he's claiming bankruptcy. So now how are you going to sue him if he's bankrupt?
That seems pretty quick that he knew something was going down. And now is this one guy or is this a group of guys or just one individual?
It's a business. Basically, it's a business. And apparently, I think he might have used some of that money to I guess, do a storefront or expand his business or do something. So that money was probably already spent. And he didn't have the money to flip at PSA. I want to welcome Don, who I didn't get to say hello to. How you doing, Don?
What's up, guys? Thanks for waiting for me, James. I appreciate it.
Don, glad you got off the lazy boy, buddy.
Because I didn't know who would hop on, and I'm interested in getting everyone's thoughts on this, being that it's a hot topic. So are you aware about what's going on with PSA and the $1 million that's owed to them?
I am. I saw Mike and Ty's video earlier, so that's all I know about it is watching that. What's up, Johns? This is going to be confusing saying John. Yeah. But it's I don't know anything about the guy that's holding this sub. I do use a guy for SGC that I sub my cards through, and I only do it about twice a year, and I found him on Facebook. And I watched him for a while and have never had problems with him. Is that to say that things couldn't change and I could be in trouble? This guy literally videotapes himself opening the packages when you send him cards to make sure what you say you sent is sent. And he lives right by SGC, and he not walks down there, but he takes them down there and delivers them. And I save like $5 a card by going through him. But like Ty and Mike were saying, like PSA not taking your money up front is insane. To be floating that loan, like I have no problem sending my money in before I get my product. It's like anything you order online. You pay for it and then you wait to get it. And to be all those cards and not be bringing in income is crazy. Because now all these guys are like, screw it. I'm not going to pay. come after me. I don't see it happening.
And that still wouldn't. It still would handle that if you submit at PSA has different grade levels. So if your card grades high and it goes up to the next tier or whatever, they could still say, hey, all right, you already paid us the $200 grading fee or whatever, but because this card graded at a certain grade, you owe another upcharge of $100. Now, that's not holding a card hostage because it's already in the terms and conditions with PSA. You submit a card and they say, hey, this card could go at a higher grade level and you may have to pay that premium. But yeah, they get the money up front. I don't know why. I did always find that strange that, okay, wait a minute, I send the cards in and get graded and then I owe the money. That, I don't know. It just does seem a little bit backwards and lends to a situation like this where someone else has the money and decides not to use it properly.
Now,
Right.
so
I just let me chime in here for 1 second. I just want to say that this is not a PSA issue, in my opinion, and I've been certainly critical of them, but this is not a PSA issue. I've never understood, and no offense to anybody that does it, but I've never understood why somebody would put their valuable cards into somebody else's hands to send into PSA. I mean, yes,
Right.
you save a few bucks on shipping or whatever it is. But I've never understood that. I wouldn't do it. I mean, maybe if it was somebody like Sean Tiefert or somebody I trusted a whole lot, but just a blind company. But the thing that, so everybody's getting, wrapped up on this, and they're going to debate the specifics of this. A little while ago it was Pokemon. A little while ago it was fake slabs. But let's talk about something bigger, and that is the trend and what is going on right now. We're finding every week something like this is happening.
Every other day.
Yeah, I mean, it feels a lot to me like the beginning of the mortgage crisis.
Yeah.
And that collapse. And I owned some mortgage stocks at the time, and you could see, there was some activity. Things weren't quite right there for a while. And then all of a sudden, one day you wake up and the bottom falls out. So I'd be more interested in having that conversation.
I think it has to do with the potential bubble being burst, maybe spring of last year, again, in more of maybe the high-end, ultra high-end market, with still inventory out with PSA. So there's cards that are coming back that people had hoped on getting back earlier, and it may be a delayed reaction, John, to the bubble bursting a little bit, and now there's still money being tied up into that system of submitting cards, getting buying cards, submitting cards, flipping them, taking that money and keep going. That the delay and the price drop has interrupted that flow, and now there's money sitting in pockets that people are going either, oh shoot, James, maybe it was, even though in this case he may have had a storefront or whatever, but I could see someone who's big into that saying, look, I'm doing my own flipping. I'm taking a loss here because I'll just take some of this money and I got to continue what I'm doing here. And don't worry, I'm going to make some money back to pay that back in time before PSA grades it. And you get caught up on the downhill slide of the market.
It's what you said earlier, John, and I'm talking about John Mangini. We were texting earlier. That's the classic Ponzi scheme, using other people's money to pay off their investors, but they're not making any money. It's all fake. And there were people sending in cards that shouldn't be sending in cards. And what I mean by that is, I'm not saying no one should send in cards. That's your right. But the mortgage, they were giving out mortgages to people that shouldn't have had mortgages. They weren't looking at credit scores, and you could get anything. And that's what was happening here with the cards. Like these guys said, sending in 500 Luis Roberts or whatever, 50. It's the same thing. And now that there's no value in it, it's just stuck with it. Like, the real estate market in Florida in the 2006, 2007, those people lost their hat, back then.
Yeah, but let's just talk about that a little bit, because I have a little bit of a different take on that. And John, I think your point is right on. I think it's a great point. On the real estate market thing, yeah, it was way easier to get loans because when the government decided that everybody should be able to live the American dream, and they lowered those standards to get a loan. When I was young, I mean, you had to put up a good 20%, and then it moved to 10, then it moved to 5. And I remember going and getting a loan for a house, and they offered me, they told me what they'd give me a loan for, and I looked at them and said, "You're smoking crack." Like, yeah, I can afford the mortgage, but I can't afford my car or to go out to eat or anything else, right? But what I think drove that is what's driving this, and that is greed. Just because the bank will give it to you doesn't mean you should take it. But what happened is everybody, and this is what happened, what John just said, and I know people that did this. So they're flipping the homes, right? And you buy a house for 200, it's worth 400 in a year. You sell that, buy something bigger. And then when the bubble bursts, you're at that $1 million level, and overnight your house goes from $1 million to 700,000. You have an interest-only mortgage, and you walk away from it because you owe more than it's worth. And that's exactly what happened. And that seems to be what happened with this company. And what he was saying, you're sending in to PSA because they're going up every month. So by the time you get them back, they're not buying them at deals. A lot of these guys are paying top dollar with the understanding and the knowledge that every month they're going higher, just like the housing market. And the thing is that can go on for an extended period of time. It's always going to bust, but you don't know how long until it busts. Like with the housing market, it lasted 10 years. And if you were smart and you didn't keep flipping and get too greedy, it's like that guy that robs banks and gets away with it 5 times. That 6th one, you might get caught.
Yep.
Well,
yeah, I think greed definitely is a big factor. And again, that goes into the slabs. It goes into the Pokemon thing. When there's big money, easy money to be had in, say, a hobby, it brings out some
in anything
characters. And
but it's not hobbyists, John. It's not people that are really into the hobby. Like back in 2007, the real estate, I worked for a new construction builder. Everyone got a loan from us. So it was greed on the owner of my company's part too. Like it was almost impossible not to be able to sell you a house. I don't care how bad your credit score was, how much money you made. We did whatever we could to get you to build a house with us. And these people shouldn't have been building these houses or buying these houses. And that's the same, the 4 of us here are basically collectors. We're not investors. And, we're in the hobby for the love of it. These people should not have been in the hobby when they didn't know what they were doing. They're like Mangini said, fast money. And they jumped in, and now they're stuck with all these rated cards that aren't worth anything.
Yeah.
And now they're screwing. It's all about morals for me too. If I send cards into PSA or SGC or whatever, and they go down in value, well, shame on me. But I'm that to me, I'm old school. That's a handshake. Yeah. I bought from you. I owe you the money. But they don't think like that.
Right.
Like,
now, one thing that
I think there's probably already too many breakers out there. I mean, you could probably check to see and go around all these YouTube channels of all these breakers, and they probably formed their YouTube channel over the last 2 years.
Right.
And they're suddenly breakers, and so
lines.
they have more subscribers than all of us combined in a month.
Right.
No, but one thing, John, that I want to say, John Mangini, I have to specify that. Yeah. When you say PSA might not get affected by this, they shouldn't, because it's not their fault that someone doesn't want to pay them. But you could see people submitting less, meaning they're going to get less business because of this. And also people are not going to be so quick to submit with submitters because now the trust issue is affected. So, and then also PSA might want to change their business model where they're going to want to take money up front. And in order to cover cards that might be worth more, if the grade's a 10, they're just going to charge more per grade, per card. So it's going to affect everyone in the end. If you got to pay, instead of $20 a card when things get normal, you're paying $35 because they want to cover themselves in case the card comes back a 10 and it's very valuable because they have to charge up front.
Yeah, and I want to clarify. I didn't say it wouldn't affect them. I said I didn't think it was their fault in this case.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm sorry, but
I'm not sure though.
It'll affect the whole hobby. This is going to affect the whole hobby.
Yeah, I think it'll affect the hobby, but I'm still not sure how much it's going to negatively affect PSA. Again, John, as you mentioned, this particular case, it's not PSA's fault. Okay, now maybe their practice of not getting money paid up front, so they may decide themselves to collect money up front. But prior to this incident, even prior to the bubble, we've been around this hobby for long enough time to know that business model that PSA had of submitting the card, whether I do it directly or through a group submitter, that's always been their model. You send the cards in, you pay what it is, and then if there's an upcharge, they tell you, hey, we know you invoiced or whatever this, but it's actually going to be this, and usually that's a good thing because your card graded higher. So that model that PSA had.
But on the other end, John, like I own my own business. I can't imagine going to my client saying, "Here's the price," but it could go up. Who knows? Like I never understood that. It's like, first of all, there's so much fraud that could be in on that. It's like
what I'm saying though.
But what I'm saying, like with SBC, it's like this is what you pay, and that's it. Like I don't care if it's a 3 or a 10. It's like, what else do you buy where you don't know what the price is going to be?
But listen, we've given them too much power. I mean, this isn't. They might not be at fault in this instance, but they've certainly been at fault in the past, and collectors just look past it. It's like they could trim a card, nobody cares. They can raise their prices to $1,000 a card, nobody cares. They keep sending them in. They can delay and not send you your cards for a year, nobody cares. And they're still the top dog because, there's just so much emphasis on PSA and the belief by many people that, a 7 in a PSA is more valuable than a 7 in any other holder. And as long as they're empowered like that, we can debate and talk about it all you want. But as long as the collecting community just gives them a pass on everything, then this is the way it's going to be. They can do what they want.
Right.
John, I see your point, Don and James, about and maybe this issue brings this point more to light or to the forefront of, well, why doesn't PSA just charge one fee per card? Okay, you have an estimated range and it's X and no upcharge. What I'm saying though is that business model has been with PSA for the last 20 years, as far as I know. So maybe if anything, more collectors will start pushing back and say, hey, PSA, that's really not the best way to do it. Now, PSA could say, just John, like you said, they could say, screw you. This is our business model. You have to deal with it. And most of the people will be like, oh, okay. But if there's enough pushback, maybe it would result in PSA changing how they charge for grading.
Well, think about like other services, other companies that charge you based on what something's worth. Like that doesn't happen. Yeah. Like if you're LeBron James and you go get a haircut, do they charge you more because you're worth so much? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're the only ones that do that. It shouldn't matter what the card is worth. Just put a grade on it. Period.
Well,
that's what you're buying.
General contracting field. So there's times I have to be very transparent with a client and tell them, hey, this is what it costs to do X job. But until we demo, we don't know if there's unforeseen issues. And when that arises, I will have pictures. I'll give you estimates to deal with that. You can tell me if you want me to go ahead with this. But I always let them know, based on my expertise, I've dealt with these issues before, and there's a lot of unknown variables.
But
so
to
bear in mind,
a key point. You said, do you want to go ahead with this? You give them a choice. And John Wade Boggs Fan, you had an excellent point, which I think if they would say, okay, it's $20 to send in the card. If it's a 1, it costs this. If it's a 3, it costs this. If it's a 9, this is the price. At least you know going in, okay, this is what
I thought they do disclose that. They don't?
I don't know. I've never submitted to PSA, so maybe they do. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought, and again, I could be wrong, and maybe I'm thinking of the time I submitted to BGS or BVG anyway, Beckett.
Yeah.
I'm
sure.
That I thought that now there, I thought I paid. I forget. It's been 5-6 years or so. I thought with them, they may have collected my money up front, but said, hey, to release the cards, hey, this one graded higher, and in their ranking of potential value, it bumps up. But to John Mangini, your point, why care about the value unless it's an insurance thing? You submit a 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle to get graded, or a 1988 Donruss Greg Jeffries. It's a piece of cardboard that someone is taking a look at and assigning a grade. And there should be a fee for someone to get the card, observe it, check out the grade, and slab it.
Yeah, it makes more sense.
Some other financial obligation behind it. Why have all these different tiers?
Well, it makes more sense, like if they charge more for vintage cards because they're a little more difficult to grade. Like that makes sense.
I can give that.
It's just a money grab. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to get a lot more for this. It's a 10 and a 9, so that's a $30,000 difference, and we want a piece. Now, here's the bad part of it. Here's the bad part of it. If their fees are based on what they assign, what grade they assign to that card, that just opens more room for fraud or unscrupulous activity. Because if they give it that higher grade, they could charge you more.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying
that
they do that, but they could. That's an incentive to do that.
Yeah, being loose on the grade, you look at it and go, how it's a 7, but how the heck is that a 7? Oh, it's a 7 because it's a 53 Topps Mickey Mantle, and now it went from the 5,000 price range to the 5,000 plus, and they charge you an extra $200 for the grade.
Yeah, or even maybe a tiered system, you know? Like a card worth over $10,000 costs this, and under 10,000 costs this, and 100 costs this, or whatever. If they actually wanted to do that, I mean, I'm not in agreement with that service based on the card value. That just doesn't seem to make sense to me.
I'd be penalized. You know, James sends in a 53 Mantle. I send in a 53 Mantle. He gets a 3, and I get a 6, and I got to pay more. Yeah, I'll make more money, but I probably knew in advance that card was worth more. What did you do differently that, you know, you graded it the same way, the same amount of effort, the same experience, nothing changed.
Same process, yep.
So you're telling me that it costs me more and it's more work for you to grade an Acuna bat down card than a 63 Fleer Roberto Clemente.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Like it's way easier to grade that Acuna than it is a 63 Clemente, right? So it doesn't make any sense.
Back before PSA had all this backlog and all this issues, I think I was corresponding with JT Triple Crown 24 on, hey, I have some vintage cards and I think I wanted them flipped over from BBG to PSA. And we were talking about, hey, you know, like, what would this cost for this particular card or that particular card? And because of PSA's tiered system, one of my cards was going to cost more than other cards based on potential value. So it was the card itself and what the potential grade could be fell into a certain pricing tier at PSA. And I had a couple that would have fallen into the higher one. So I'm thinking to myself, I never did it, but I'm like, all right, so these cards are going to cost me this much to grade. These cards are only going to cost me a little bit less to grade. And there's another set that may cost me a little bit less to grade. It doesn't make sense. They're grading all the They're grading baseball cards.
I think we got a little bit off track with the topic. Overall, after what's transpired with this whole issue, PSA being owed $1 million, and this might have happened in other instances, but to a lesser degree, so it never made news. You know, it didn't make news because it wasn't someone as popular as Ryan.
Yeah.
So it's not to say that this isn't happening, but do you think PSA ultimately, or the hobby, is gonna be affected in a negative way now that this is making news and headlines?
I don't think PSA will be affected. I think it'll be the guys that are in charge of the group clubs that are going to be affected, because PSA is PSA, and as both Johns have said, they're like John Gotti. They're Teflon. You know, everything just.
That's exactly what I was thinking of in my head.
You know, like it won't matter to them. But if you're a group clubber, it's like, do I trust you now? Just like you know, PBCE. Well, you know, what's in that '86 Fleer basketball case? Is it really basketball cards? You know, I think it's going to affect more the guys subbing than it is PSA.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And the lesson, I guess, to be learned is, unless you really know the person that's submitting on your behalf, you know, it's almost buyer beware. Like John Mangini, you said, I would feel comfortable. I would feel comfortable sending a card to JT for him to submit group breaks, or Mike O. I know he does a bunch. I think he switched over to SGC, but there's certain ones in the hobby that have been around a long time that have a very good reputation that I would feel comfortable sending it to. If this is someone, again, these groups of people have popped up over the last like 2 years, coming in, doing all this stuff, seeing all this money. If you get caught up with that and you think you know someone because a friend of a friend submitted and got a great deal, and okay, well, give me their contact information, and hey, I know so-and-so, can you submit these cards for me? It just opens up to potential greed and getting burned.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I think all these things are going to affect the hobby in a negative way. They have to. They already are. We're talking about it. The question is, you know, we lived through it. Well, some of us lived through it, you know, back in early 90s, whatever. And I mean, the hobby was, you know, prices came down for a long time. And you had, back then it was more like Tops and all the new companies coming up and the overproduction, right? Like there was that documentary where an employee from Upper Deck claimed that they were making the '89 Ken Griffey Jr. the next year because so many people were chasing it and they were buying the packs like crazy. And so we had that's what happened back then with greed. But, you know, that affected the hobby for a long time. Now, for you and me, that's awesome because we got to buy a bunch of great cards cheap, right? Yep. Like I'd give anything to go back there. I'd give everything to go back 4 years and start to buy, you know, for the vintage I want. But it's definitely going to affect the hobby. It's just a matter of how much, how long, and to what degree, you know?
Right.
I guess how much and to what degree is the same thing.
And then unfortunately, the hobby has been getting a lot of black eyes lately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they've been making headlines in a negative light lately. It seems like within the last few weeks, which is like we don't get a rest. Every day it's something new to read about, hear about, and talk about. And, you know, we all love and respect the hobby. I mean, we're all collectors, big time. Look at John's room, like both of John's. I think you gotta be named John to have a superior room like both of you guys. But I mean, both of you
got a photo of
you're a prime example of collectors. Don to a lesser degree, sorry.
No, I'm with you. I would kill to have a room like those two have.
Yeah, but unfortunately, we're dealing with a lot of black eyes in the hobby right now, and I care a lot about the hobby. I mean, I care a lot because not only am I into it and collecting, but I also have a lot of friends now due to the hobby that I'm fully into it now. And I love it. I love being part of it, but it sucks when I keep reading or hearing negativity or going on YouTube and seeing scandals. And I don't want to get turned off. Do you think people are going to get turned off ultimately because of this?
Yeah,
I mean, they should. There's
Go
some
ahead.
that should be leaving the hobby or whatever.
Don't you guys feel like, as collectors, don't you feel our hobby was hijacked by
Yeah.
people trying to make a buck? Used car
Yeah, I'm
salesmen.
sticking around no matter what. All
And
this
so-
is stuff
Yeah,
happening.
but don't you feel like people have
Yep.
taken over the hobby? I mean, like YouTube channels coming up telling you what card to buy that they started collecting yesterday, and they get 3,000 subs overnight, and just all this craziness, and now all the problems that they're causing, right?
I kind of know, to be honest, because I feel stay in your lane, and the four of us are in our lane.
But you can't stay in your lane when they're driving all our prices up. I mean,
Well,
we're paying
okay,
3 times. As a
Yeah.
collector, that's not good.
Yeah. My point was, or is, that the true collectors, and at least the people that I'm friends with or follow, we're typically good people. Like, I don't watch the breaker videos, and I'm not saying there aren't good people doing breaks and things, but I'm so blinded by vintage that that's all I watch. I don't, even the YouTube Hall of Fame vote, there's football guys, hockey guys. It's just not my thing. So I don't watch those guys. And I just feel the scams, like, I don't do wax. It's like, I feel like I look at the true, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, not legit, because I'm sure maybe I have some slabs that are fake, who knows? But I just go for the try and true. I don't go for the new flashy, shiny thing. And that's what I feel.
It's so funny. We used to have to worry about altered cards. Now we have to worry about altered slabs.
Right.
Think about that.
Right.
Like, slabs have taken over the cards. I always say that. I say everybody today, like the collectors today, care more about the slab than they do about the actual card. And now we have people graded cards, and we have fake slabs. Like, what's next? Slab trimming?
Yeah. Well, I think, like, say, the four of us. I think the four of us are going to be around next year and the year after that and year after that, because we have a love for the hobby and the interactions, James, like you said, just even the personal interactions, but our own collections. And we never got blindsided by, like, oh, squirrel, oh, over here, let me dip into that, let me go into this, and this is hot, and maybe I can make some money here. We've always been true 10 years, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, yesterday, that this is what we enjoy. Now, John, to your point, yeah, there are times in the bubbles we're paying more for a card and it sucks. But there's going to be a bubble burst that prices may go back down and say, okay, that craziness ended. I may not have bought a lot of cards during that time. It was frustrating, but I'm in it for the long haul. And there's going to be a time where you say, hey, things are going pretty good for me. I'm picking up some nice cards, and then it's going to keep, going back and up again. We've been in it for such a long time that I know whatever happens with PSA, whatever happens with Fanatics, whatever happens with box breakers, whatever happens with this, I still love vintage cards. I still love Wade Boggs cards. There's still going to be some out there. My buying patterns may change or something, but for my love of baseball cards and all these people on YouTube isn't going to change if, no matter what Fanatics does with the Topps brand or some BBCE case is fake, or it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, don't you think, though, that it does benefit to have more people and younger people and new collectors come into the hobby, and these kinds of things deter them from happening?
Yeah, yes.
We were finally starting to see a boom with kids coming into the hobby again, and this is what they're going to encounter early on in their collecting life, and they may get out of it and never get back in. So, I've been outspoken on a lot of things in the hobby, and I get pushed back on a lot of it. But the bottom line is, somebody needs to stick up for us collectors and for the collecting community. And these things aren't good for the hobby overall. There's a lot of negativity that come from it. And yes, all of us on here right now, we're going to keep buying, and maybe we overpaid the last year or two for all the cards we bought. They'll all go down in value next year, maybe. And, maybe I didn't get to buy a bunch of cards that were on my want list that just I got priced out of. A lot of cards used to be, within my range of what I'm willing to pay. And now they're not, But any negativity, sometimes a little negativity isn't necessarily bad if it draws light and gets people talking about something. But I just don't think that all this stuff's going on right now. There's an old saying: those who don't know history, don't remember history, are doomed to repeat it. We're in a bubble in a lot of things. I don't know if you follow stocks, but Netflix stocks was down over $100 in the aftermarket tonight, and I can name you about 100 or 500 tech companies that are down 50-60%. But because the overall market isn't down that much, people aren't noticing. But if you go look at those charts, there's something bigger happening here. I said on interviews a year ago and everything, I thought the card boom could continue. But I said the one thing that will derail it the fastest is a change in the economy, like a downturn. And so if this trend in the markets continues, it'll come into the hobby. There's no question about it.
One thing, now that you're talking about the financial aspect, do you think PSA slabs, which usually hold a premium with pricing when it comes to cards graded by SGC, BVG, what have you, CG, do you think their prices might come down a little bit based on reputation or I guess any other reasons based on this negative feedback from news?
I think I would be useless in that category because I've never understood why there were so much more to begin with. Oh, that's mine. I have no idea.
It's the registry. Those guys are addicted to that registry, and they way up. And John Wade Boggs Fan, this is not a rip on you, but I know you're a PSA guy exclusive. Yep. Where I'll buy PSA, SGC. I just want the card. It doesn't matter to me. And I think there'll always be the loyal PSA guys that'll keep buying PSA, and that's fine. That's their choice. But they have such a following. I don't think it'll affect them.
To me, I think it's yes, and it's true. There are some followers, and at this point in time, I've drank the Kool-Aid. Okay, I admit, but to me, everything ultimately is market driven. All right. So let's say there are a hardcore group of people that collect PSA, but more people are clamoring for SGC graded cards. Well, if the balance of demand switches to where more people seek out SGC and they say, I'm tired of PSA, then there's going to be more of a demand for a finite supply of SGC slab cards as opposed to a greater demand of a finite number of PSA graded cards of a particular card. So then you'll see the market flip, and SGC in theory, now it's not going to happen overnight, but you may see a slow trend where SGC catches up to PSA because, again, more people say, screw you, PSA. I like SGC. I like the slabs. I like their business model. I like this. I like that. Like how the cards look, whatever. And over time, I think you could see that there could be an evening out of return on value or whatever the price is.
You hit on a great point there. And I've seen recently people who never had SGC, like Mike, baseball collector. He just got his first SGC. And I see on pages people were switching because they didn't want to pay the fees and they didn't want to wait so long. But I think it's going to take a very long time because I don't know how you feel about this, but the people I see who are PSA fanatics, it's about the uniformity to a large degree. Like they can't stand to have a card that's different, like all these PSAs and then an SGC. And if you're one of those people and you want to switch to SGC, now you got to switch all your cards to SGC because you can't stand if they're not all in the same label.
Right.
I
know there's some nutcase that, and I'm a I guess I don't say proud member of that society, but I mean that is me because I look at my BVG and they're slabbed, they're fine. I mean, but I'm like, but I have all these PSA. I need them all one. But I think there's maybe a few of us. I think the big thing, John, just to your point of taking a long time, if you look at the total population of PSA slab cards, they've been around so much longer well, I don't know about age, than SGC, or at least
They were around the
population
same time.
over time.
Yeah.
So even if they were at the same time, I think more cards since then have been graded PSA. I don't know what the vast number is, but I would venture to say from the inception of each company, there are more PSA slab cards out in the market than SGC. So you're already battling that. The demand is really going to have to change. So it could take 5 years. It could take 10 years until supply is such that people are clamoring for SGC and they can get it. So, but I can definitely see a trend.
I personally don't see a balance shifting so much, only because there's so much graded by PSA. Like there's times I'm looking at an item that I like and it's in a PSA holder, but I like the card. I like the way it looks. It's centered. Maybe I don't like the price tag because it holds a premium. But ultimately, if I want that card, I'm going to pay up for it because ultimately I'm in love with the card. I want to feel in love with the card, and it happens to be in a PSA holder. But if I were to turn around and sell the card, I also know I'm going to get more in return. So I sleep easier in knowing that I put my money into something, even though I spent more, I might get more in return. But I don't ultimately, that doesn't drive me to buy PSA graded cards. I have just as equal amount BVG and SGC. I even have a few GMA slab stuff because ultimately I just want the card. But I don't see the market shifting so much because, like John said earlier, John Mangini, he said that this isn't on PSA. And ultimately, I don't think people are going to get turned off enough to want to submit cards through PSA and then now switch gears and go to SGC, unless people like Alico, I think he's a proponent to SGC. If there's more submitters, group submitters that turn up now pushing to do SGC all of a sudden, then I think there'll be a little bit of a shift in balance and powers, but it'll take a lot more than just Alico to do group submissions. And so far, it's like everyone does PSA. So as long as everyone does PSA, the demand is for PSA.
Right. The switch over or change or narrowing is going to be very, very slow. But James, in your example, so let's say you're looking for a particular card and you're looking for, whatever in a certain grade. Chances are right now you're going to find more PSA examples to choose from than SGC. But let's say over time, and so you would tend to, in that situation, you'd find a card, I like this card. More often than not, it would be in a PSA label. But over time, if more and more people start submitting through SGC, now when you're looking for a particular card, now maybe it starts to, instead of like 80-20, now it starts to become 60-40 PSA versus SGC. You have more of a selection. You may say, oh, I like that one because of the centering or whatever, and it may be SGC, and it may be a little bit cheaper than PSA. I'll buy that SGC one.
That's how I buy now.
And then a lot of those PSAs maybe don't get sold as fast, and the SGCs are sold. Now people are saying, hey, I want to submit mine SGC. And so now more population. Again, it's not a month by month. It's a multi-year by multi-year slow gradual change so you really can notice a change in supply. But that's how I can see SGC coming close to PSA when you have the same amount of supply.
When I search for, let me just throw out, like today I was looking for a 68 Seaver. First, I'll search SGC, and then I'll search PSA. Because for me, I know which one it's in. And there are so many PSA examples in SGC. But I do agree with you. It's going to be a slight change because a lot of these guys that submit a lot don't want to wait to send their cars to PSA. They'll send them to SGC because I can get them back in 6 weeks and get them on the market. A lot of guys on Facebook that sell on there, they're showing their cards, and there's a lot of SGC cards out there. And for me, I mean, personally, I prefer SGC cards because I just like the way they look, but I look for the best card. but it's much harder still to get SGC cards. But as far as price goes, yes, PSA is still the king, but man, SGC has climbed a lot in the last couple of years. I mean, you used to get SGC cards with steel, and especially on the quote big boy cards, they're right up there with PSA.
Right. Well, I basically think that we've covered all the topics based on this new development with PSA and what's owed to them. I want to basically thank you three for joining me. John, when we were speaking earlier, we were like clamoring to get this issue out there.
I had to beg you guys.
John Wade Boggs
We're
Fan,
much nicer
I want
on,
to thank you for jumping
on here
on
than
too.
we are on our text to each other.
Yeah.
Don,
I had to beg
you're not on
Don.
our text stream.
Don was on his lazy boy. He didn't want to get up.
Right.
And John, Wade Boggs Fan, I want to promise you, we did not look to beat you up, being that we know you're a big PSA registry guy.
Oh, not at all.
No,
Not at all.
we
Same.
just wanted to get your
Let's get
perspective.
on. We can bust his balls, but PSA, such a liar.
No, and you've been a good sport too. You've been a great sport.
And guys in the chat, I never realized how hard it is. It's impossible to look at the chat and react while you're on here. Because I'm usually on people's videos. I'm like, how come we never respond to anything?
Well, maybe we should. Maybe you should see some of those comments because we'll never see them again.
I know.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I wish that they showed them whenever I'm watching somebody's live video. It would be nice if you could see the comments as they go.
Yeah, because I guess I haven't. Maybe I didn't click on the right thing, but I wasn't even seeing the comment. Oh, there we go. I didn't even click on the tab. I didn't even see any of the comments coming in.
I didn't either.
Sorry, guys.
I see a few comments here, but it seems like a lot of people were talking amongst themselves in there.
Yeah,
that
I
happens
see a few that are pretty cool. Like SGC starts getting their due respect. The price of card value due to the slab makes no sense. So that's Big T, and he doesn't understand the disparity in prices.
I don't either.
And then Pick a Jim Mess over here says PSA will always be the top dog as long as their resale value continues to be higher than the others, which is quite true.
That's.
Bink Scott thinks it's personal preference, which most of us agree. And I mean, some of these are a little bit already archaic due to our conversation, but I'm sorry I didn't keep up with the chats. I was just so involved into the conversation.
We were going hot and heavy.
Yeah, it was a hot topic, and I apologize to the viewers who we didn't keep up with the chats, but I was too involved. But I do want to thank
on here that you can record live and keep the chat. I don't know how you do any of that.
Oh, you can? I've never seen one like that, so I didn't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
Do that.
guys, it's almost an hour now. I do want to thank John Mangini, John Wade Boggs Fan, and Don Field of Dreams for hopping on with me. It was a pleasure having you guys on. All your points made a lot of sense, and it's to be continued now to see what's going to happen and how they're going to resolve this issue. And unfortunately, it's a black eye on the hobby that we love. And hopefully your card or anyone in viewing this didn't submit through this submission group, because I'd hate to know what's happening to your card right now, man. I feel for you. But until then, I'm going to thank you once again for joining me, all the people viewing, and John, both Johns, and Don, thank you once again for joining us, and I'll see you guys on the next one.
Thanks, James.
Thanks.
Don, John.
Yeah. See you, Don. See you, John.
I got